I would have been swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up?
Dude was possessed with some kind of demon, man. He's possessed with some kind of demon. Want to be in all this red, this dark rooms with the music blasting. It had to be a certain temperature. A certain type of music for the vibration they were saying. Come on, bro.
Man, it's hard to even talk about why would you find a religious man, when you know that the saints supposed to separate themselves from the sinners, and why would a religious man like himself be at a party which ain't nothing but sin that's going on, bro? When it's drinking.
Yo, you better buckle up for this one. When Gene Deal speaks, people don't just listen, they lean in. This man wasn't some fly on the wall. He lived in the shadows of the hip-hop game's biggest empire. As Puff Daddy's ex-bodyguard, Gene wasn't just lurking in the back. Nah, he was right there, front and center. The parties, the private jets, the VIP rooms, Gene saw everything. And now, he's dropping a bomb that no one saw coming. Gene's blowing the lid off what really went down with Bishop T.D. Jakes stepping away from his pulpit. On the surface, Jakes' resignation looked clean, respectful, like a man ready to take a bow. But Gene, he's saying there's way more to it. And it's not pretty. According to Gene, this wasn't just a preacher feeling tired and stepping back. It's way deeper than that.
What about these rumors surrounding, Diddy and T.D. Jakes?
Man, what I think about it is this, when I grew up in the church, the sinners was not supposed to have the same atmosphere with the saints. You have to be able to separate the two. So I'm looking at him as a saint going to a party that ain't nothing but sin. Drinking, maybe fornication, man on man, woman on woman, he on she.
Gene's pointing the finger straight at Diddy. That's right. It wasn't just about the church. It was about Diddy, too. Let's be real. Diddy and Jakes weren't just casual buddies. They were tight. They showed up together all the time, hyping each other up, mixing the world of faith and fame like it was nothing. But what the public didn't see, that's where it gets juicy. Gene's saying their bond wasn't just about spiritual talks or Sunday sermons. Nah, there were whispers, backroom deals, maybe even secrets that couldn't stay hidden forever. And let's be clear, Gene's not some clout chaser spitting wild stories for clicks. Nope, he's got stories that'll make you rethink everything you thought you knew. This man's been carrying the weight of what he knows for decades. From the wild East Coast versus West Coast battles to the darkest, dirtiest corners of celebrity life, Gene's been sitting on receipts that could make the whole industry shake. And now, he's connecting the dots that some folks are desperate to keep apart.
And whether it's the money, the promises, or whatever, it gets him.
Diddy wasn't just a powerhouse. He was smooth, calculated, magnetic, and straight up dangerous when he needed to be. He had this way of making people feel like they were blessed just to breathe the same air as him. But behind the tailored suits and flashy charm, something wasn't right. There was always this dark vibe, like a storm brewing just beneath the surface. People hung around Diddy for different reasons. Some, they were flat out bought, cash money. Others were pulled in with shiny promises, a feature, a record deal, a spot at the table, something they couldn't resist. And some, they stayed because they were scared to cross him because Diddy had dirt, real dirt. He had leverage that could ruin careers. Saying no to Diddy, that was like playing with fire. You could lose it all. And when it came to T.D. Jakes, this wasn't just about faith and fellowship. Nah, Jakes was all in. Footage and sources over the years showed Jakes in rooms that didn't exactly scream Sunday service. He wasn't there to pray. He wasn't there to preach. Diddy didn't just give T.D. Jakes a seat at the table. He gave him everything: money, platform, power. And Jakes didn't just accept it, he embraced it. For a man who preached about morality and redemption every Sunday, it's wild how fast he jumped into circles where those words didn't mean a thing. This wasn't some casual friendship. This was a full-blown alliance. Jakes wasn't some innocent dude caught up in the mess by accident. Nah, he wanted a slice of Diddy's world, no matter the price. And if that meant looking the other way at those wild parties, if it meant keeping his mouth shut when things got messy.
There to save some souls. I know he got a contract with Revolt, so I'm just like, it's just real strange that he would be found at any kind of Diddy party or any kind of place with Diddy unless it's in a business atmosphere. So now what he's doing is he's making, man, he making the Christians look real bad right about now.
And you've been to these parties, right?
Oh yeah, I was there when he was doing the white parties in the Hamptons and the whole 9 yards. So I know what goes on at the parties. If, you know, they probably got a little bit more freakier, you know, as time went on, you know, because they got to the point whereas that they didn't even care.
Then that's exactly what he did. Jakes wasn't trying to stop the madness. He was soaking it all in. Because let's be real, Diddy gave him everything. The cash, the shine, a chance to be culturally relevant outside the pulpit. And in return, Jakes gave him something too, his silence, his presence, his name. You can't be standing that close to the fire and act like you didn't feel the heat. TD Jakes knew exactly what he was doing, and Gene Deal didn't sugarcoat a thing. He dropped names, pointing straight at TD Jakes, saying the megachurch bishop wasn't just a bystander. He was in the mix, right there in the middle of it all, playing the game while acting like he was above it. Not as some innocent bystander, not as some clueless guest, but as an active player in the twisted, disturbing world Diddy built behind those closed doors. According to Gene, what went down at those parties wasn't just wild, it was straight up evil. We're not talking about the usual celebrity excess here. Nah, this went way deeper. There were girls, lots of them, young, vulnerable, and manipulated, passed around like props at a party no one should have been at. There were dark stories of drugs, control, and a heavy spiritual darkness that hung over the whole scene like a thick, choking fog. And right there in those same rooms, Gene says, was TD Jakes, the man who built his name on holiness, integrity, and leadership, standing shoulder to shoulder with one of the most controversial and allegedly dangerous men in hip-hop. Gene didn't hold back. He spelled it out clear as day. Jakes knew exactly what was going on. He saw it with his own eyes. He felt the energy, the weight of it all, and he still chose to stay. He chose to be part of something so deeply wrong, especially when it came to the women caught in the middle of that madness. And it gets even wilder because Gene saying Jakes wasn't just some passive witness, he was allegedly working with Puffy in the shadows. It was betrayal, plain and simple. Betrayal of faith, betrayal of the public who trusted TD Jakes, and worst of all, betrayal of the countless victims who suffered while men with power, influence, and a pulpit stood by in silence. Because let's be real, if TD Jakes was really the man he claimed to be, he wouldn't have been anywhere near those parties. So the big question is, why did one of the most powerful pastors in America suddenly step down? If Gene Deal's telling the truth, the answer might have everything to do with Diddy, and everything we weren't supposed to find out. For those who've been out of the loop, here's the deal. TD Jakes' name officially got dragged into the legal mess swirling around Sean Diddy Combs, the once untouchable pastor from Dallas, known all over the world for his charisma, his influence, and the massive crowds at the Potter's house, was no longer just a spiritual figure watching from the sidelines. Nope. His name popped up front and center in a federal lawsuit tied to Diddy, and suddenly, Jakes wasn't just a preacher, he was part of the controversy.
We know he's going to the Diddy parties, and I know that it's, I know what usually happens at the Diddy party, or what we told us happened at the Diddy party. Maybe he needs to see it for himself, man. Maybe he needs to go there and really be involved in some things that could help save some individuals while they going to those parties. Or maybe he just going to, man, it's hard to even talk about Why would you find a religious man, when you know that the saints supposed to separate themselves from the sinners? And why would a religious man like himself be at a party which ain't nothing but sin that's going on, bro? Whether it's drinking, maybe fornicating, maybe, like I said, men on men, women on women. It's hard to put in perspective unless he's involving himself what is actually going on at the parties.
And this wasn't just some random lawsuit either. It came from a music producer who had worked closely with Diddy, someone who knew the inside game. According to the complaint, Diddy allegedly planned to use his relationship with T.D. Jakes as a shield. Yeah, a way to protect his image when the fallout hit, especially after that explosive lawsuit dropped from Cassie Ventura. And why did Diddy need that cover? Because what he was doing to Cassie, according to those allegations, was horrific. If you've been keeping up with this wild saga, you know the name that kicked the door wide open, Cassie. The former longtime partner of Diddy came forward with heavy accusations. Serious misconduct, including claims of physical abuse. Her story wasn't just another headline. It shook the entire industry, dragging dirty secrets out of the shadows and into the spotlight. And here's the kicker. This wasn't just about Diddy sweating over legal trouble. According to the lawsuit, Diddy wasn't just worried about courtrooms, he was plotting damage control like a chess master, and guess who he allegedly tried to lean on for cover? Bishop T.D. Jakes. Yeah, Diddy allegedly saw Jakes as a key piece in his strategy, maybe for the optics, the influence, or access to a massive, loyal following. Whatever the reason, Diddy allegedly viewed Jakes as a crucial ally to help him weather the storm. Because let's face it, Jakes had spotless public trust. His name carried weight, and Diddy needed that. Meanwhile, Diddy's legal team didn't hold back. They came out swinging, calling the federal raids on his properties excessive, theatrical, and unwarranted. But let's not get distracted by the headlines. Behind the outrage, behind the press statements, a very different picture was forming. A picture of powerful alliances, secret meetings, and backdoor deals, all designed to protect reputations at any cost. As the headlines got louder and the lawsuit stacked up, whispers about T.D. Jakes started swirling, and nobody saw it coming. In December 2023, the Dallas Morning News dropped a report that had the streets buzzing. It said unverified claims were floating all over social media, accusations that Bishop Jakes had attended some wild parties allegedly hosted by none other than Diddy. No official proof, no hard evidence, just digital smoke. But in the world Jakes lives in, smoke is all it takes to light a fire. Because when your name is as big as T.D. Jakes, even rumors with no receipts can spark a storm. And instead of letting the whispers build, Jakes decided to face it head on. But he didn't drop a press release or sit down for some safe interview. Nope, he stood tall in front of his congregation during a Christmas Eve service at the Potter's house, with cameras rolling and the whole church watching. And Jakes, he didn't back down, he came bold. The worst that could happen if everything was true, all I gotta do is repent, sincerely from my heart, he preached. There's enough power in the blood to cover all kinds of sin. I don't care what it is. The blood would fix it, but I ain't gotta repent about this. It was part sermon, part defense, and it hit like a punch in the gut.
To be secretly, where people used to go to, separate rooms and different rooms, and they wasn't doing that out in the public, but now they don't care. Men kissing men and all this other man, it's crazy.
The room felt the tension. Some heard a man of faith standing strong, reaffirming his innocence. But others, they caught a different vibe. Like Jakes knew exactly how deep the accusations had cut and was trying to spin the narrative before it swallowed him whole. This wasn't just any preacher handling online gossip. T.D. Jakes is the founder of the Potter's House, a mega church he built from scratch in 1996. And it's not just a church, it's a spiritual empire. Over the years, it's grown into a powerhouse, boasting more than 30,000 members across campuses in Dallas, Frisco, Fort Worth, Denver, and even Los Angeles. T.D. Jakes' influence didn't stop at the pulpit. It stretched everywhere. Politics, pop culture, and now it looked like he'd landed right in the middle of a federal investigation. That Christmas Eve service, it wasn't just a celebration. It was a full-blown damage control mission. A man of God, standing on sacred ground, trying to distance himself from the chaos of a crumbling celebrity empire he might have been closer to than he ever admitted. And here's where it gets messy. Jakes and Diddy weren't just casual acquaintances. Nah, they were tight, real tight. There's plenty of evidence showing how deep their connection ran. Photos, videos, public appearances, Diddy and Jakes side by side, laughing, praying, hugging it out, even sharing the stage together. This wasn't just some passing friendship. It was something more. A relationship that blurred the lines between faith, fame, and influence.
Hey man, but to get into this lawsuit, right? Cassie, she testified that Diddy would force male escorts to urinate in her mouth during free-calls.
My man, that's a touchy and difficult subject when you're a man and you have daughters. You understand? And that's why we as men need to play a prominent part in our daughters' lives, because you get men like this that's got this corrupt and devious minds that they don't respect womanhood. You understand? That's some nasty, perverted things that you want to have somebody urinate in the mouth of somebody who gonna be talking to you in your face, who gonna be kissing on you, who gonna be eating food with you. What kind of deviant and crazy mind you have to have somebody do that to somebody that you care about, you supposed to care about, that you supposed to love, man. Something is sick about that, brother. You can't tell me that that's some kind of fetish. You know what I'm saying? He didn't outdid R. Kelly with that right there, bro, when I heard that. So that's an effed up subject and situation, man, to even imagine that you got somebody doing that to somebody that you supposed to care about and you supposed to be in a relationship with.
Back in 2021, that bond took an even more public turn when Jake started preaching on Revolt Media, Diddy's own cable network. People raised eyebrows hard. I mean, you've got one of the biggest pastors in the country dropping sermons on a hip-hop platform known more for beats and bars than Bibles. But that move, it showed just how merged their worlds had become. Now, as lawsuits and investigations close in around Diddy, the fallout is moving fast. Just this week, Combs sold off his remaining stake in Revolt Media to an anonymous buyer, cutting ties with the company he built back in 2013. And don't forget, last year, Diddy quietly stepped down as Revolt's chairman, slipping out the back door of a platform that once screamed his name and power. The timing of all this, it's way too perfect to be just coincidence. With Diddy drowning in legal drama and everyone in his circle catching heat, the spotlight has been shining hard on everybody around him. And for someone like T.D. Jakes, who's been publicly and privately linked to Combs for years, the questions aren't slowing down. They're getting louder. Did their friendship ever cross a line it shouldn't have? Was Jakes just an innocent spiritual guide caught up in the mess? Or was he playing a deeper role behind the scenes? The truth is, this story ain't just about Diddy anymore. Ever since the Diddy scandal started blowing up all over the media, Jakes has been in full-blown damage control mode. He's been speaking out, calling the claims flat-out lies, brushing off the rumors, trying to keep his name clean and his distance from the mess. But here's the thing, the public's not exactly buying it. That long history, the photos, the events where Jakes and Diddy were side by side, people remember. What we're seeing now is a man fighting hard to rewrite the narrative, but the internet never forgets. And the streets are buzzing louder than ever. And now, Jakes is taking it to the courts. A lawyer repping the bishop just filed legal action in the Northern District of California, going after YouTube and its parent company, Google. What's the goal? To unmask the identities of 4 YouTube users who've been uploading videos, accusing Jakes of attending Diddy's infamous parties and getting caught up in the dark side of the entertainment world. According to the motion, the accounts causing all the heat are based in Pakistan, South Africa, the Philippines, and Kenya. Jakes' legal team claims these channels are spreading AI-generated lies, violating YouTube's own rules, and they're pushing Google to unmask the folks behind them. But here's the thing, not everybody sees this as a noble fight for truth. Nah, a lot of people are saying this looks like Jakes trying to silence the noise, trying to shut down the voices calling him out and bury the allegations before they explode. Some believe it's not really about stopping fake news, it's about stopping exposure. Because if even a little bit of what's being said turns out to be true, it could wreck everything Jakes has spent decades building. The powerful sermons, the glitzy celebrity connections, the spotless public image. It could all come crashing down like a house of cards. And instead of stepping up and addressing the accusations head on, it looks like Jakes is going after the platform, not the truth. To a lot of folks, that doesn't scream defense, it screams cover up. And now, with the pressure closing in and Diddy's trial heating up, Jakes is quietly stepping back. But trust, it's not going unnoticed. Just weeks after his name started getting linked to Diddy's lawsuits and all those dark accusations, Bishop Jakes dropped a bombshell. He's stepping down from the leadership of the Potter's House, the church he built from the ground up back in 1996. Jakes told his congregation that the future of the Potter's House was in good hands. He was passing the torch to his daughter, Sarah Jakes Roberts, and her husband, Toure Roberts. He framed it as a legacy moment, spiritual, thoughtful, and long overdue. "This is legacy," he said, his voice shaking, fighting back tears. Not because they're kin, but because they're the kind. He urged everyone to welcome them with open arms, speaking like this was all part of a divine plan. But outside those church walls, people weren't buying it. A lot of folks saw it differently, and some even think Jakes should be involved in the trial. One person posted on X, "Was this guy Diddy's bodyguard? Maybe that priest needs to be questioned in the trial." To them, this wasn't legacy, it was an exit strategy. A carefully timed retreat right when the heat around his name got too loud to ignore. When you've been tied to wild parties, lawsuits, and accusations that cut right to the heart of everything you've preached for decades, stepping down doesn't look like a peaceful handoff. It looks like running for cover. And the buzz is catching fire, fast. A lot of people don't believe Jake stepped away because God told him to, or because it was just time. They're saying he saw the storm coming, and he got out before it swallowed him whole. With Diddy's trial heating up and more disturbing details dropping every week, the fear is real. TD Jakes' name might pop up again, and this time with receipts. His long history with Diddy, those photos at high-profile parties, and the whispers that have been circling for months. People are convinced Jakes isn't as far from the chaos as he wants us to think. Some are straight up saying he resigned to protect his image before it was too late. Because if his name officially shows up in those lawsuits, in the evidence, in the accusations, it's game over. This wouldn't just be about public opinion flipping on him. His own congregation, the folks who followed him for years, could turn their backs too. And for a man like TD Jakes, who built his whole world on reputation and respect, that would be the ultimate blow. So let's be real. This step down, it doesn't look like a peaceful retirement. It looks like a strategy, a quiet, calculated exit, a move that screams, "Let me leave before I get dragged out." When Jakes announced he was stepping down from leading the Potter's House, he didn't say a word about Diddy. Not a single mention of the lawsuits. He didn't even hint at the storm raging outside those church walls. Instead, he leaned into a softer angle, his health. Jakes claimed he'd recently faced a serious health scare, something so heavy it made him rethink everything, his pace, his priorities, and his position. He talked about having an attack, feeling the years of ministry finally catching up to him. He framed the whole decision as a matter of self-care, wisdom, and longevity. And sure, on the surface, it sounded believable. The man, 67, been preaching for decades, traveled the world, written books, built a massive church empire, and carried the weight of spiritual leadership for thousands. Of course, someone like that might need to slow down, right? But when you really listen, it starts to feel like a distraction, because timing doesn't lie. Jakes didn't have this sudden health awakening last year. He didn't make this big announcement when his calendar was packed or when life was quiet. Nah. He did it right after his name started popping up in the Diddy scandal, right after Gene Deal dropped those bombshell claims, right after social media started digging, pulling up old pictures, old videos, and receipts that showed just how close Jakes and Diddy really were. People have seen this play out too many times. When public figures get caught up in controversy, they don't always own it. They deflect. They don't stand up and say, I'm stepping down because I'm scared of what's coming. Nope. They say, I'm stepping down to take care of myself. It's the same tired playbook. Shift the story, soften the exit, make people feel bad for you instead of suspicious of you. But let's keep it real. The internet doesn't forget, and neither do the people watching this unfold. The health scare might sound good on paper, but for those who've been following this saga closely, they know better. They see through the smoke and mirrors. This isn't about getting rest. It's about reputation. It's about damage control. It's about stepping away before the whole scandal blows up in your face. Because when those lawsuits start digging deeper, when more names start getting exposed, when testimonies begin painting the real picture of what went down, TD Jakes doesn't want to be caught in the middle of that storm. He wants to be gone, out of sight, wrapped up in sympathy, hiding behind the excuse of wellness. But here's the thing, truth doesn't vanish just because you walk away. The truth doesn't care about your legacy, and no matter how carefully you try to stage your exit, the real story is still out there, waiting to unfold. So what do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know how you feel about all this. And hey, if you like this video, hit that subscribe button and smash the bell icon so you never miss an update. I post stories like this every week, breaking down the secrets behind your favorite celebrities. See you on the next one.